A mechanic in Arizona just posted something that blew up across every car forum on the internet. He pulled apart a 2021 Ford Explorer with only 48,000 miles on it. The cylinder walls looked like they belonged to a vehicle with 200,000 miles. The piston rings were worn. The oil was burning off faster than it should. The owner had no idea why. He kept up with every oil change, never missed a service interval, and drove it gently. But there was one thing he left on every single day without realizing what it was doing to his engine. One button. It is sitting in your sport utility vehicle right now. And if you are like most drivers, it has been turned on every single time you start your vehicle. I am talking about the auto start-stop system. And before you scroll away thinking you already know this story, you do not. Because what is actually happening inside your engine every time this thing activates is far worse than anyone told you when you bought the car. Today we are breaking down exactly what this feature does, which sport utility vehicles are suffering the most damage from it, what the dealerships will not say to your face, and most importantly, how to actually stop it from running, not just for one drive, but permanently. What auto start-stop actually is. Here's the pitch automakers gave you. When you stop at a red light, the engine shuts off automatically to save fuel. When you lift your foot off the brake, it starts back up instantly. The EPA credits this system for saving roughly 3 to 5% on fuel economy. That's what gets it into the window sticker numbers. That's why every single major automaker adopted it across their SUV lineups between 2017 and 2022. Ford, GM, Jeep, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, BWM, Mercedes. If you bought an SUV in the last 7 years, there's an overwhelming chance you have this system. But here's what they didn't tell you clearly enough. Every single time your engine shuts off and restarts, it counts as a cold start event. Not a full cold start, like first thing in the morning, but the oil has already partially drained back down from the upper engine components. The camshafts, the valvetrain, the upper cylinder walls, they are no longer sitting in a film of pressurized oil. When that engine fires back up, there are milliseconds, sometimes a full second or more, where metal is contacting metal with inadequate lubrication. Engineers call this boundary lubrication. The rest of us call it engine wear. Now here is where it gets serious. A conventional starter motor in a traditional vehicle is designed to handle somewhere between 50,000 and 75,000 start cycles over its entire lifetime. That is roughly one start per day for 150 years. Sounds like plenty, right? With auto start-stop activated in stop-and-go city traffic, your engine can cycle 18 to 20 times in a single 30-minute commute. A German automotive engineering study tracked vehicles in urban environments and documented up to 500,000 start-stop cycles over the lifetime of a vehicle using this system. That is 10 times the load a conventional starter was built for. This is why manufacturers quietly upgraded to beefed-up starter motors and AGM batteries in vehicles with this feature. But the engine itself, the cylinder walls, the bearings, the rings, those tolerances were set before this level of cycling was considered normal. The SUVs, taking the hardest hit. Not every SUV suffers equally. The damage depends on engine design, oil viscosity, how aggressive the system is programmed, and how often you are in stop-and-go traffic. But there are specific models that mechanics, owner forums, and independent engineers keep bringing up again and again. Ford Explorer and F-150 with the 2.3-liter EcoBoost. This engine is turbocharged. Turbos rely on oil pressure to lubricate the bearings in the turbocharger housing. When the engine shuts off, oil pressure drops. Every stop-start cycle means the turbo is momentarily starved before oil pressure rebuilds. Ford's own technical service bulletins have addressed excessive oil consumption on these engines, a known downstream effect of repeated lubrication interruptions. One Explorer owner on a Ford forum documented replacing his turbo at 61,000 miles. His dealer could not explain why it had failed so early on a well-maintained vehicle, Jeep Grand Cherokee with the 3.6-liter Pentastar Phi 6. The Pentastar is actually a solid engine, but the 3.6-liter in the Grand Cherokee runs with an auto start-stop system that Jeep owners have been complaining about since 2014. The system is particularly aggressive. It will shut the engine off at extremely low speeds, sometimes while you are still technically rolling. Jeep forums are full of threads about rough restarts, shuddering, and what owners describe as a violent lurch when the engine kicks back on. One owner described it as feeling like getting rear-ended every time you touch the brake at an intersection. That lurch is not just uncomfortable, it is mechanical stress on motor mounts, driveline components, and yes, on internal engine surfaces during that restart moment. The Chevrolet Equinox and GMC Terrain with the 1.5-liter turbo are a prime example. These engines are physically small for the job they are being asked to do. They are turbocharged, small displacement, and paired with an aggressive auto start-stop calibration. General Motors has faced criticism for how quickly the 1.5-liter can go from shutting down at a stop to being asked to immediately accelerate at full throttle when the light goes green. A University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute paper specifically flagged small turbocharged engines as being disproportionately affected by start-stop wear compared to larger, naturally aspirated motors. The BMW X5 and X3 with the B58 engine show a similar pattern. The B58 is genuinely one of the best engines BMW has built in the modern era, smooth, powerful, durable. But BMW's implementation of auto start-stop is notoriously aggressive. It will shut the engine off with the air conditioning running, the stereo blasting, and it restarts with a hesitation that even BMW enthusiast publications have called jarring. One independent analysis by a German engineering firm found that BMW engines in vehicles with active auto start-stop showed measurably higher cylinder wall wear at 60,000 kilometers compared to identical engines where the feature was disabled. The numbers were not catastrophic, but they were consistent. And consistency over 150,000 miles adds up. Toyota RAV4 and Highlander. Toyota has been more conservative with their start-stop implementation than most, but the 2.5-liter dynamic force engine, when paired with the latest hybrid system in non-hybrid RAV4s, still uses a belt-driven starter generator that creates its own set of wear concerns. Owners report the system restarts noticeably faster than older implementations, which helps, but the fundamental issue of lubrication gaps at restart remains physics, not engineering opinion. What the dealers won't tell you. Here's where this gets uncomfortable. When you bought your SUV, the salesperson probably mentioned the fuel savings. Maybe they demonstrated the start-stop feature in the parking lot, watching the engine light on the dashboard flicker off and back on. What they didn't mention, and what many of them genuinely don't know, is that the fuel savings calculus is based on fleet average data under test conditions. In real-world urban driving, most independent testing organizations find the actual savings range from 2 to 4%. On a $60 fill-up, That's maybe $1.50. Per tank. That's the trade-off being made against the additional mechanical wear being introduced into your drivetrain with every single stop. A veteran mechanic with 22 years in the industry posted a video last year showing the insides of two identical 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokees. Both had around 70,000 miles. One had the start-stop feature disabled from day one with an aftermarket cancel module. The other had run with the system active its entire life. The difference in cylinder wall scoring under inspection was visible to the naked eye. He's been telling his customers for years, the pennies you save on fuel aren't worth the engine life you're trading away. And here's the part that should genuinely make you angry. Most SUVs reset the auto start-stop disable button every single time you start the vehicle. You push the button to turn it off. You park. You come back the next morning. It is back on. Every day, without fail, the system resets itself to active. You have to remember to press that button every single time you drive. Most people forget within a week of buying the car. The manufacturers know this. The button that says off does not mean off permanently. It means off until you turn the key again. Before we get to the permanent fix, do me a favor. If this is the first time anyone has explained how start-stop actually works inside your engine, hit that like button. It helps this channel reach more SUV owners who need to know this. Okay, here's the fix. How to actually turn it off for good. Option 1. This is what works for most SUVs. Check your vehicle's settings menu inside the infotainment system. Some manufacturers, particularly newer model year Ford, Chevrolet, and Toyota vehicles, have added a buried menu option that lets you set the start-stop system to remember your off preference. It is not advertised. Your dealer almost certainly will not mention it. Go into your settings, look for driver preferences or vehicle customization, and dig through every submenu. Some owners have found the option sitting 3 or 4 layers deep with a label that says Start-Stop Preference or Engine Idle Stop Memory. Option 2 is the method that works across almost every SUV, regardless of brand. There are small plug-and-play devices, typically around $20 to $35, that connect to your vehicle's OBD2 port, located under the driver's side dashboard. These modules simulate you pressing the disable button automatically every time the car starts. The vehicle does not know the difference. The start-stop system thinks you turned it off manually. It stays off for the entire drive, every drive, without you doing anything. These are sold under names like Auto Stop Elite and Start Stop Eliminator, and they are compatible with most major SUV brands and model years. Mechanics have been recommending them for years for customers who want to protect their engines without modifying anything permanently. Option 3 applies to some European brand SUVs, including certain BMW, Mercedes, and Audi models. Some of these vehicles allow coding changes through diagnostic software that can permanently alter the system's default state. This is more involved. You would need a dealer to do it or a shop with the right proprietary diagnostic equipment. But for owners keeping their vehicles long-term, it is worth asking about. One important note: disabling auto start-stop will not trigger a check engine light. It will not void your factory warranty. It is not tampering with an emissions control device. The EPA does not regulate the start-stop feature itself. It only affects how fuel economy is calculated during EPA testing. Turning it off is completely within your rights as the vehicle owner. The bottom line: automakers designed auto start-stop to hit fuel economy targets and hit them cheaply without having to fundamentally re-engineer their powertrains. The 3 to 5% savings they claim is real under laboratory conditions. In your actual daily commute, in traffic, With the air conditioning on, with the engine not at full operating temperature, the savings are marginal at best. And the trade-off is cumulative, invisible engine wear that will not show up in a single oil change or a single inspection. It shows up at 80,000 miles when your turbo starts burning oil, at 95,000 miles when your rings are worn and compression is down, at 110,000 miles when your mechanic looks inside the engine and asks how many miles you drove this thing in stop-and-go traffic. The mechanic in Arizona whose story started this video? His customer was devastated. A vehicle with 48,000 miles that looked like it had lived a very hard life. The only culprit anyone could point to was that blinking icon on the dashboard that most drivers do not even notice anymore. It has become background noise, part of the car's normal behavior. But normal does not mean harmless, and in this case, normal has been quietly wearing down engines across millions of SUVs, one red light at a time. Find the button, turn it off, every single drive. Or better yet, plug in a module and stop thinking about it entirely. Your engine will thank you in a language everyone understands. Fewer repair bills and more miles before it ever becomes a problem. That's all for today. If you found this useful, please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when we release the next video. Drop in the comments what SUV you are driving. I would love to know how many of you have already been turning this off manually. Thanks for watching. See you next time.